If you've been on Twitter or YouTube over the last few weeks, you've heard the narrative. The Clarity Act is almost here. The influencers are telling you that this is the bullish catalyst we've been waiting for. They're saying 2026 is the year the floodgates open, the year that Wall Street money finally pours in, and the year that your bags will finally go to the moon. But while everyone is celebrating the green candles, almost nobody is reading the fine print. Because if you actually look at the text of H.R. 3633, the bill currently sitting in the Senate Banking Committee, scheduled for markup on January 15th, you start to realize something. This isn't a victory for decentralization. This isn't a win for the little guy. This bill is actually a Trojan Horse. It's designed to look like a gift, but inside, it carries provisions that could hand total control of the crypto ecosystem to the very banks that we set out to replace. We're talking about KYC requirements for DeFi front ends. We are talking about stablecoin surveillance that makes the Patriot Act look chill. And we are talking about a legislative sleight of hand that specifically favors massive custodians like BlackRock and JPMorgan while leaving anonymous developers out in the cold. So today, we're taking apart the Clarity Act and the Genius Act. We're going to look at who wrote them, who paid for them, and who actually wins when they become law. Is regulation worth the price of your privacy? Well, my name is Lewis. Let's find out. Before we go on though, remember that nothing in this video is financial advice, and I ain't no financial advisor. This is educational content to keep you informed about all of the shenanigans going down on Capitol Hill. If that sounds good, then pick up that chair, crack a cold one, and hit that like button like it just insulted your sister, and let's get going. Now, to understand the trap, you first have to understand the bait. The narrative right now is seductive. We're entering 2026 with an overtly pro-crypto administration in the White House. President Trump has promised to make America the crypto capital of the world. We have SEC Chair Paul Atkins promising to end the war on crypto. And we have this bill, the Clarity Act, which passed the House with a bipartisan supermajority back in July of 2025. The promise is simple: regulatory clarity. No more getting sued by the SEC for selling unregistered securities. No more guessing games, just clear rules so businesses can build. And on the surface, that sounds great. But let's look at what clarity actually means in legal terms. Section 406 of the bill creates a new registration category: digital commodity brokers. Now, if you're Coinbase or Kraken, well, this is great. You register with the CFTC, you follow the rules, you make money. But the language gets murky when we talk about DeFi. The bill supposedly exempts software developers. That's the talking point politicians like Senator Cynthia Lummis use. They say, we aren't regulating code, we're regulating businesses. But here's the catch. Lobbyists reviewing the recent red lines of the Senate bill have flagged a massive gray area. The bill treats DeFi front-end operators, the websites you use to interact with Uniswap or Aave, as registrants if they maintain control or, and this is the kicker, if they operate a fee-collecting DAO. Think about that. If a DAO votes to turn on a fee switch to sustain the protocol, that DAO might suddenly be classified as a digital commodity broker. And what do brokers have to do? Well, they have to collect customer information. Imagine trying to swap tokens on a decentralized exchange, but before you can connect your wallet, a pop-up asks for your passport, your social security number, and a facial scan. That is not DeFi. That is just a bank with a different database. If this provision passes as currently written in the Senate markup, it effectively kills the idea of permissionless finance in the United States. You will have two choices. Use a fully KYC'd, regulated DeFi front end owned by a corporation, or interact directly with the smart contract code through a command line interface, which, let's be honest, 99% of users will never do. But killing DeFi isn't the goal. It's just a side effect. The real goal is the bank heist. While everyone is arguing about DeFi, the traditional banks pulled off a masterstroke in this legislation. You see, for years, banks were kept out of crypto by something called SAB 121, a rule that said if a bank held your crypto, they had to hold a massive amount of cash on their balance sheet to offset the risk. It made crypto custody unprofitable for banks. Clarity Act explicitly overrides this. It bars regulators from forcing banks to hold extra capital against customer crypto. Why does this matter? Well, because right now, Coinbase is the custodian for almost everything. They hold the Bitcoin for the BlackRock ETF. They hold the assets for the institutions. But look at who is now gearing up to enter the market. BNY Mellon, State Street, Citibank. They have been building custody infrastructure for 3 years, waiting for this exact moment. The Clarity Act is the starter pistol for the banks to take custody of the market. And unlike crypto-native firms, banks have a structural advantage. They have direct access to the Federal Reserve window, and they have trillions in existing assets. This is why the bill creates a qualified digital asset custodian requirement. It funnels all institutional money, your pension funds, your 401ks, the ETF flows, away from self-custody and into the vaults of the same banks that caused the 2008 financial crisis. They aren't trying to ban crypto. They're trying to gentrify it. They want to evict the cypherpunks and move in the compliance officers. And if you think I'm being paranoid, just follow the money. In the first half of 2025 alone, the crypto industry spent over $18 million on lobbying. Coinbase dropped nearly $3 million. BlackRock spent over $2.5 million. Do you think BlackRock is spending millions of dollars to protect your rights to privacy? Do you think that they care about the ethos of decentralization? BlackRock's 2026 outlook explicitly calls stablecoins the quote-unquote plumbing of the future financial system. They want to own the pipes. And that brings us to the second part of this trap, which is the Genius Act. President Trump signed the Genius Act into law in July of 2025. It regulates payment stablecoins. Again, the name sounds great, guiding and establishing national innovation. Who could be against innovation? But let's take a look at what it actually does. First, it mandates that stablecoin issuers must be approved by federal banking regulators. If you issue more than $10 billion in stablecoins, you have to transition to federal oversight. This effectively solidifies a monopoly for massive issuers like Circle, USDC, and potentially new bank-issued coins, while making it nearly impossible for smaller, algorithmic, or community-backed stablecoins to compete. But here is the provision that hurts you directly: ban on interest payments. The law prohibits stablecoin issuers from paying interest to holders. Think about that. In a world where interest rates are 4 to 5%, stablecoin issuers are earning billions of dollars on the treasury bills backing your tokens. Tether made more profit than BlackRock last year. Under the Genius Act, they are legally forbidden from sharing that yield with you. So, who keeps the profit? The issuers, the banks. It's a wealth transfer from the user to the institutions, codified into federal law. And it gets worse, because these issuers are now treated as financial institutions under the Bank Secrecy Act, which means that every transaction you make with a regulated stablecoin is subject to surveillance. They aren't just creating a digital dollar. They are creating a surveillance tool that tracks every coffee you buy, every donation you make, and every person that you support. If you use a regulated stablecoin, you are effectively using a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, issued by a private company. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but this is just the US, and crypto is global. I'll just use offshore protocols. Well, I have some bad news for you. The US doesn't regulate in a vacuum. When the US sneezes, the world catches a cold. And in this case, the US is aligning its strategy perfectly with the European Union's. The EU's MiCA regulation is already in full effect as of this month, January 2026. We are seeing massive fines. We are seeing delistings. Tether's USDT has lost nearly 28% of its European market share because it's not MiCA compliant. The US Clarity Act and EU's MiCA are two sides of the same coin. They are creating a global net. If a DeFi protocol wants to survive, it has to choose. Do you comply with US and EU rules, implement KYC, and censor transactions? Or do you go quote-unquote dark, lose access to 60% of the world's capital, and risk your developers getting arrested? We're already seeing the bifurcation. Clean crypto for the institutions and dark crypto for the rebels. And the dark crypto is getting hunted. Privacy coins like Monero and Zcash are being delisted from major exchanges like OKX because they can't comply with these new Clarity rules. The Clarity Act applies the Bank Secrecy Act to brokers, and you cannot comply with the Bank Secrecy Act if you can't see who is on the other side of the trade. So, by definition, privacy is outlawed on regulated platforms. So, let's look at the scoreboard. Who actually wins here? Well, winner number one is Coinbase. They get a moat. They have the licenses, the lawyers, and the lobbying power to crush any startup trying to disrupt them. Winner number two, well, that's BlackRock and the banks. They get to override the capital rules that kept them out. They get to custody the assets. They get to issue the stablecoins and keep all of the yield. And who loses? Well, you do. You lose the yield on your stablecoins and you lose the privacy of your transactions. You lose the ability to use permissionless DeFi interfaces without handing over your ID. And honestly, the industry loses its soul. We built this industry to escape the corrupt banking system, to build a parallel economy where code is law, not the whims of politicians. The Clarity Act doesn't destroy crypto. It does something even worse. It assimilates it. It turns Bitcoin from a tool of revolution into just another asset class for BlackRock to rebalance into a 60-40 portfolio. The markup is happening on January 15th. The influencers will tell you to celebrate. They will point to the price of Bitcoin hitting new highs and say, see, regulation is working. But ask yourself, is the price going up because we won, or is it going up because we sold out? This is the Trojan Horse. We opened the gates because we wanted institutional money. We wanted the number go up technology. Well, the money is here. The bankers are here. And they are rewriting the rules to make sure that they are the house, and you are just a gambler. Question is, do you feel lucky? Now though, I want to know what you think. Is regulatory clarity worth sacrificing the core values of DeFi? Are you okay with KYC on your DEX if it means Bitcoin goes to $200,000? Or would you rather stay in the gray area and keep your freedom? Sound off in the comments below. And if you want to understand how to protect yourself in this new surveillance regime, well, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because in the next video, we're going to break down the few remaining privacy tools that will still work in 2026. Until then, stay skeptical. This is Lewis, signing off.